Byzantine Empire. Many tend to forget that when the Western Roman Empire fell 1500 years ago, the eastern half of the Roman Empire still continued to survive for another 1000 more years. And believe me when I tell you that this empire is one of the most unfairly treated empires in human history. It was for a long time often wrongly viewed as a degenerate, inferior continuation of the previous, more glorious Roman Empire. But what if I told you that this Byzantine Empire, or Eastern Roman Empire as it should be correctly called, was absolutely not inferior, and that many fascinating technologies and inventions were created by these Eastern Romans? Well, then let's talk about the top 10 most incredible technologies that the Byzantines invented. And many of those technologies you are using on a daily basis without even realizing that it was the Byzantines who invented them. 10. Military inventions. Possibly the most famous Byzantine invention of all time is the one which is most likely the only one that most people know to have been invented by the Byzantines, namely Greek fire. This weapon was used by the Eastern Romans starting in the second half of the 7th century, based on the invention of Kallinikos, an artificer who had fled his hometown of Heliopolis from the Muslim Caliphate. The exact recipe of the compound used to feed the flames is still unknown, even though there are some educated guesses as to its exact composition. It must have been based on crude or refined petroleum comparable to modern napalm. It burned on water and could not be extinguished by water, making it such a powerful weapon in naval warfare. This terrifying naval weapon would save the city of Constantinople many times from foreign invaders, especially from the Umayyad Caliphate. However, the Byzantines even made a portable version of Greek fire, which for all intents and purposes was basically a flamethrower called a hand siphon. But they still weren't content with their incendiary innovations, and of course they had to also build incendiary grenades. Those appeared not long after the reign of Leo III. These grenades were made in different sizes, even as large as to be hurled by catapults or trebuchets. So the Byzantines brought warfare with fire to a whole new level. But regarding trebuchets, the most powerful and effective type of trebuchet, the counterweight trebuchet, was, unbeknownst to many, also a Byzantine invention. First mentioned in a 12th century work by Niketas Chionates and possibly invented in the late 11th century. But the hand trebuchet, which was a portable version of the trebuchet, was also invented by the Byzantines in the 10th century. So the Byzantines invented quite insane military technologies, which explains partly how they could survive for so long against enemies on all sides. 9. Architectural innovations. The Byzantines were master builders who built incredible structures that still stun many people today. The most famous one possibly being the Hagia Sophia, which was based on an innovation called the pendentive dome, which is a circular dome built atop of a rectangular floor plan. The diameter of the Hagia Sophia, with 31.24 meters, remained unsurpassed for more than 800 years. Another innovation was the cross in square type of building, which featured a square center with an internal structure shaped like a cross, topped by a dome. But the Byzantines were also excellent bridge builders, and they invented the pointed arch bridge, wherein, as the name implies, the arch is not round but pointed. The Karamagara bridge was of such a construction, with its single arch spanning 17 meters. This type of pointed arch construction was later adopted by the Muslims as well. And now to something different. You love Roman history, I love Roman history, right? That's why you're here. What if I told you that you can buy Roman history as a present for yourself or someone else? Enter the SPQR Shop. They make amazing rings, amazing pendants, attributes, terracottas, coin replicas. They make a lot of wonderful replicas of Roman items, and it's all 100% handcrafted. Let me tell you, the level of craftsmanship is absolutely incredible. You can even buy the one and only Maiorianus ring. The ghost of the Emperor Majoran himself once appeared to me in a dream and told me that the power of Majoran himself is imbued into that ring. Okay, maybe the whole story was completely made up, but the ring sure looks cool, and you can only get it on the SPQR Shop. But there are of course many other rings and amazing items that the SPQR Shop crafts with an incredible attention to detail. And with a code in the description, you will get a 20%, I repeat, a 20% price reduction on every purchase on the SPQR Shop. So don't hesitate and buy something nice for you or someone else as a present who also happens to like Roman history. Thanks for your attention, and back to the video. 8. High-speed communication via light beacons. Have you ever seen the third part of Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King? Of course you have. It's a classic by now. In one scene, fires are lit on mountain peaks in order to communicate in a fast way over large distances from the kingdom of Gondor to ask Rohan for help against the army of Sauron. Believe it or not, but that is actually a Byzantine invention. This system was created by the Byzantine scientist Leo the mathematician for Emperor Theophilos. The easternmost signal fire was lit at a fort near Tarsus in the east of Asia Minor, and it would reach the palace of Constantinople only 1 hour later. This way, the emperor could know very fast if the caliphate was attacking from the east. Truly ingenious. 7. Portable sundial. The Byzantines were really good with astronomy and dates, and so the portable sundial was a Byzantine invention. They already knew latitudes and time zones and gears, which allowed them to build such devices. A mechanism of interlocking gears and dials synchronized the time to each weekday and thus allowed to read the moon phases as well as the date and time, and not only in Constantinople, but also in the other major cities of Western Europe as well. 6. Musical organs. Probably everybody has already been to a church and listened to the impressive sound of a musical organ. But probably nobody has thought to him or herself, what an amazing Byzantine invention. But it is exactly that. The Eastern Romans brought that invention to the West in the year 757 AD, when the Eastern Roman Emperor Constantine V sent one such organ to Pepin, king of the Franks. The Byzantines, however, themselves, funny enough, didn't use these organs in churches, but for ceremonies of all kinds and for spectacles, especially in the hippodrome, or sometimes even in battle. So next time you go to a church and hear the impressive sound of a church organ, remember that it was the Byzantines who invented this. 5. Innovations in physics and astronomy. The Byzantines had already discovered, or let's say rediscovered, that the Earth was a sphere, while the rest of Europe was still living in ignorance. In the 11th century, the Byzantine scholar Simeon Seth proved that the Earth is a sphere. Byzantine astronomers also knew about how lunar eclipses worked and could predict when they would occur. They also knew that the Sun was much bigger than the Earth, and based on the spherical nature of the Earth, they thus also developed the knowledge of time zones, which they had applied to the sundials that were mentioned before. So the concept of different time zones, which is normal for us, also comes from the Byzantines. 4. Corpus Juris Civilis, codification of law by Justinian. Many don't know that the foundations of Western law also originate from the Eastern Roman Empire. Under the Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian, a collection of fundamental works in jurisprudence was enacted from 529 to 534 AD, led by Justinian's Minister of Justice Tribonian. This work would later influence medieval European law, as this work was copied and brought to Western Europe, and so this would then of course in turn also influence modern law. 3. Hospitals. Have you ever been to a hospital? I hope not too often. But this too, turns out, is a Byzantine invention. The concept of a place that offers medical care and the possibility of a cure for patients due to the ideals of Christian charity was a revolutionary concept in the medieval world, because normally one would go there to die. However, the Byzantines came up with the idea of a hospital and actually trying to cure the patients there. This would then of course understandably catch on and would also be adopted in Western Europe and then later the rest of the world. 2. Modern calendar system. What if I told you that our modern calendar system with 365 days and every 4 years a leap year is a Byzantine invention as well? Pope Gregory XIII is normally credited with this invention when he implemented the new calendar system in 1582. But there was a Byzantine astronomer called Nikephoros Gregoras who lived more than 200 years before Pope Gregory, and he found out that the Julianic calendar was not precise enough. He tried to calculate the date of Easter in the year 1324 when realizing that the Julianic calendar was miscalculating the length of the year by a small fraction of a day. He fixed this and told the emperor, but the emperor decided not to implement a new calendar, fearing that this would create a split in the Eastern Church. And so this lay dormant for over 200 years until Gregoras' work got into the hands of Pope Gregory XIII. And based on Gregoras' calculations, Pope Gregory then implemented that new calendar system with a few modifications. But largely, our modern calendar system is therefore based on the calculations of Nikephoros Gregoras, a Byzantine astronomer. Okay, these were all interesting inventions, but what if I told you that there is one invention which all of us use on a daily basis and which most don't realize that this is actually a Byzantine invention? I am talking about the fork. Yes, the fork was originally used by Byzantine nobles already in the 7th century. It was then brought to Europe around the year 1000, but initially didn't receive a good reception as the Venetians feared that this device would insult God, who had after all given people fingers to eat. Well, luckily they reconsidered and now everybody on earth uses such devices for eating. Honorable mentions. The Byzantines invented so much that a top 10 list wasn't even enough to accommodate all these inventions, and thus here are some honorary mentions. They also invented huge water cisterns, thus allowing to store water in large underground halls for extended periods of time. They also invented boat or ship mills. The Eastern Roman general Belisarius is first credited for having them built during the siege of Rome by the Ostrogoths in 537 AD. But they also invented feta cheese. Yes, that type of cheese is indeed a Byzantine invention. And landing boats that open to the front? Yep, that too, a Byzantine invention. And lastly, I also have to mention the automata in the throne room of the Magnaura. There were 2 golden lion sculptures which employed a clever system of hydraulics, and they thus made sounds and would also move. There was also a tree with mechanical birds, and according to one observer in 949 AD, the emperor's throne could even be lifted up to the ceiling. All these feats were accomplished by water pressure through pipes propelled by a water pump. Although such automata existed already earlier, such as the famous ones by Heron of Alexandria, they are still a fascinating display of what the Byzantines were capable of. And please like and subscribe so that you won't miss any videos on the fascinating era of the late Roman Empire. And please consider supporting this channel via Patreon or via YouTube membership, because your support is what allows this channel to exist in the first place. You would have my utmost gratitude. And I would like to thank our two new Augustus members, Zach Halter and N. Octavius Astronomus. Thank you so much, Zach Halter and N. Octavius Astronomus, for supporting Maiorianus in such a generous way. And of course, I would like to give a huge shout out to our Sol Invictus Patreon Caesar Cheese for giving me the inspiration for this video. I would like to thank everyone who is supporting Maiorianus in any form, be it through Patreon, YouTube membership, through a PayPal donation, or simply by watching the videos. Thank you for supporting Maiorianus, so that we can keep this a channel about late Roman history. And if you want to learn more about the top 10 Roman technologies, you can watch this video in the upper right corner. But if you want to learn why the Eastern Roman Empire survived longer than the Western one, you can watch the other video in the lower right corner. I say thanks again to all friends of Roman history, gratias tibiago and bene valete.